That thing was a piece of crap. I grew up in a motorsports family, and through that got into racing at a young age. I was 7 years old, and I grew up racing different spec cars that were always purpose-built race cars. And through that, I then got to know some people with Miatas, and I'd always seen the Spec Miata series. So I decided, well, let me see what one of these things is about. So I bought one, and it was an NA Miata. And at the time, I thought, okay, great. Did some homework on it, talked to some people, and was like, this is awesome. Well, I decided I wanted to go race it. And looking at trying to gut it all and put a cage in and everything. And I was like, if I'm going to do that, I might as well do an NB. So I decided, well, let me see if somebody wants to trade an NA for an NB. So I started searching around. The more I was searching, the more I was seeing. And I finally see a guy puts an ad up saying, looking to trade my NB track car for a daily driver NA. So I start messaging the guy back and forth, and we settle on everything. I said, I'll come to you, because he wanted a little bit more. And I said, well, if I come to you and do the trade so you don't have to do anything, can we meet on this price? My best attempt at being a shrewd negotiator. Not very good. We had an event in Pittsburgh. So I left Chicago, drove to Pittsburgh. We do a 4-day event, and our event days are 12 to 16-hour days, depending on what's going on. And we had a grueling 4 days. And a buddy of mine who had sold me this first Miata said, oh, I'll come with you and I'll do this trade with you. I was like, sweet. So we leave Pittsburgh after 4 days, and it's, I don't know, 8 o'clock at night or so. And we hit some back roads in Pennsylvania, trying to get to the highway and to get on our way. And we're loving these roads. I mean, some of the best roads I've been on. I hope I can find them again sometime. As we start getting down the road, we start having a few issues with the Miata, because it's almost 20-year-old car at this time. And, you know, it didn't have AC. It was having some power issues at the time. So we pulled over. We had to use a gas station toolkit to fix this thing on the side of the road. We get back in, we're heading down. We finally get to DC, and it's like 5 a.m. And we had driven all night. We get there, and there's only like 2 hours before we were supposed to meet the guys. So we find a parking garage, and we get into the parking garage, and it's 45 minutes free. And I had no money at all. So we decided we would sleep in the Miata, 2 guys sleeping in a Miata together. And we go in there and we set an alarm for 40 minutes so that we'd have enough time to get out, get back in, and get another 40 minutes of sleep. And we didn't have to pay for anything. So we finally meet this guy. It's like 7 a.m. Not everything that he said on the car was exact. And we start looking at everything, and we get the titles swapped, and we start back on the drive. One of the big things he left out was that these fixed racing seats were for a guy maybe closer to 6'2", 6'4", and they're fixed Kirky aluminum seats. I'm trying to drive like this, and I can't reach the pedals. So we're stuffing stuff behind the seat so that we can actually reach. And the biggest thing was it was missing a latch for the soft top. So we get on the road. There's no power steering. There's no transmission boot cover. The entire inside of it is stripped out. And these Kirky aluminum seats are the worst. And they're giant. And it's hitting me on my ribs. And it was awful. So we get on the road. We're having to hold the soft top down with each hand. And you're driving like this. And as we're going, it's middle of June. Transmission heat is just flowing up through the giant hole in the middle. And we're cooking. So we let the soft top down. We're getting just baked by the sun. We're stopping off, getting more and more sunscreen. I think we went through an entire bottle of sunscreen between the two of us. We would then get tired of that, throw the soft top back up. We're going back and forth. The entire time, there's no radio. There's no AC. There's no power anything. This thing is literally stripped, and everything is echoing inside. And it is so loud. We're trying to scream to each other to just talk. George then decides he's going to drive because I was done. And George is smaller than I am. And he's maybe 5'2". So we stuff everything we have behind him and he still can't even reach the pedals. So we're thinking, what are we going to do? And it literally, he is slouched down to where he can barely see over the steering wheel. And he's trying to do like this just to reach the pedals. And when he does that, he's just tall enough to still reach the roof so that we could hold the soft top on. And we did this all day, all night, in both of the Miatas, back and forth. And in total, it was about 30 hours in a Miata, doing nothing but trying to have a conversation, because neither of them had a radio that worked. Neither of them had AC. Both of them were just awful Miatas, but we got it home. I pulled it into the driveway and my wife looks at me and she's like, well, it's green. I guess I like it. The only thing she cared about, it was green. The problem was I didn't also tell her. And I now owned 3 Miatas at the same time and she only knew of one. So that became a whole new topic when I show up with this green one and someone goes, well, what about the silver one? What are you going to do with that one? She turns around, what silver one? Yeah, well, I think I have a Miata problem. That was kind of the start of it. It started with this red NA and then trading it for this green one that we got. And then from that one, I bought a parts car for it because I knew it was going to break. I decided to build this car. It came with a roll bar. And the good thing about a Miata and most of the race cars, when you convert it from a street car, you can part it out. So when you're looking at the Honda community or the Miata community, things like that, they're real easy to part out. So you can just start selling your center console, $150, your seats, $300. You start going through these different things. Soft top, another couple $100. So you start doing these things and you roll that money into building the car. So if you're smart about it, it doesn't cost a ton because you're selling the stuff you're taking out. So it's worth it to buy a reasonably good car at a good price so that you can part everything out and get some money for it. But for me, I decided, well, this car's got nothing in it anyway. Who cares? So I started parting out some of my parts cars and was using that money to build the car. My wife was pregnant with Dorothy at the time. And I decided, you know what, I want to get a race in before the baby arrives so I can get it done. And my dad helped me with all my racing growing up. So he had paid for just about everything. And I was at a point where I could finally pay for a race for him. So I thought this will be perfect. We'll go do this father-son race again and we'll be able to, do all these things. Well, the build out on it took a lot longer. The car was getting the cage installed for a year. It took, because I told the guy I had this much budget and they built a great cage, but it was in their spare time. So it literally took a year to get a cage built. And finally, because I originally wanted to do it before I got married, nope, that didn't happen. So now I was going to do it before the baby arrived, and that was really the motivation. So the team name was kind of a dig at the online community. So I did FS/FT when baby arrives. So for sale, for trade when baby arrives. And that was the team name. And it really was, I told everybody, as soon as the race is done, car's up for sale. I got to get it out of here because baby's coming. Well, unfortunately, the car got wrecked in the race, so it's worth nothing. And you take what was then a $4,000 car, it's had $6,000 roughly dumped into it. And now all of a sudden I've got still a car that's worth maybe $4,000. And I'm like, okay. We fixed up a few things, got a new door on it, some other stuff done. And sure enough, got it sold, $5,000, fully caged, ready to go race car for $5,000. But some of these Miatas, I think the SCCA National Championship winning car, I think just sold for almost $40,000. It was between $35,000 and $40,000. If you dump the money in, sure, you can get the money back on some of them, but racing, you really should anticipate. If you put $1 in, expect 0 back. So then I had the silver one, and then while we were getting that one fixed, I needed a running parts car to make it to a race. So we drove this thing with a roll cage and tires strapped. We ratchet strapped the tires to the roll cage and drove from Chicago to Gingerman. And I had no license plate or anything for it, and we just drove to the racetrack. Everything is piled in the back. Drove all the way to Gingerman for a champ car race, chump car back then. But I needed a working parts car because I I knew it wasn't going to last. So I flew out to Colorado and picked up a Copart Miata and drove it from Colorado back home again. That thing was a piece of crap. We then had 3 of them, and we drove 2 of them to Gingerman. We were able to piece back together enough of one car to get one car back, and had to trailer the other one home. But that's kind of been the story of the Miatas so far, and now I've actually just sold the last one, so I don't own any more of them. I've got a 2-year-old daughter instead, so that's been where everything goes. But this green Miata has done all kinds of stuff. It started as an autocross car, and so the guy did a bumper cut and all kinds of random things. He swapped out the dash from an NB dash to an NA dash just so it would be lighter weight. The car was just all kinds of Frankenstein. But the new owner of it is a good friend of ours, and he's gone through, he's redone everything. He's rebuilt basically the car from the ground up. He was able to run it actually this past July at the WRL race at Road Atlanta, and we had a good time down there. So still racing a Miata, but moved into an NC chassis for that one. I think the Miata is a fantastic first track car. My hesitation to tell everybody to do it is if you get caught up in it, you'll never move on, because the Miata lifestyle, it's got quite a bit of gravity to it, and you get in it and you stay with it, and then you don't ever move on and experience some really cool cars. And a good step is just getting into either BMW or into a Mustang or Camaro or something. Just move up a little bit in power and experience something else. And I've seen a lot of people, I think, maybe get stuck there. That's my only hesitation with telling everybody to start there. If you want to use it as a stepping stone, get a cheap one, spend $5,000 on it, drive it, learn what to do, and be ready to move on and move into cooler and bigger, faster things.
We'd like to thank the Ticket Clinic for sponsoring this month of VINwiki Car Stories. If you get a ticket, no matter where it happens, it can have disastrous effects on your insurance premiums, points on your license, and possible suspension. So it's very important to find a lawyer that's local to wherever you got the ticket. The Ticket Clinic is a national law firm with headquarters in Florida and Texas, but affiliates everywhere, and they can help you fight a ticket and achieve the best possible outcome. They kept me out of jail in Arkansas last year, they've helped tons of my friends, and they can help you too. So visit their link in the description below for a discount.